Everyone hears people talking about cholesterol, and many of us have high levels that are dangerous. It may be because the amount of cholesterol is altered, or any other of the cholesterol particulates like LDL or HDL are unstable. So for this video, we're going to look at how to correct our cholesterol levels and how to always maintain a proper balance. But another aspect that we have to look at is why we need cholesterol and why is it important? Because it isn't as simple as to simply reduce cholesterol. Cholesterol is not meant to clog our arteries. That only happens when things are out of control. So in order to know how to balance cholesterol, we must understand how it works. The first thing is that cholesterol can come from different sources, and it's not just from our diet. Our body also produces cholesterol. In fact, it produces about 3 grams of cholesterol per day, which would be an equivalent of consuming around 12 to 14 eggs during a meal. The majority of this cholesterol is produced by the liver, and the reason is because we need cholesterol to produce hormones like testosterone, and this includes the majority of the hormones. It helps to produce vitamin D. It helps to produce bile, which are necessary so we properly digest fats in our food. So when this becomes unstable, the excessive amount of fat and bile is what causes kidney stones. Cholesterol has many other functions that are crucial to the body, so much that all the organizations around the world have declared that the total amount of cholesterol are not necessarily a direct indication of cardiovascular problems. And yes, till this day, we've heard the opposite and that we must reduce cholesterol, but the evidence is clear. It isn't just as simple as reducing cholesterol. So if I lower the cholesterol by watching the foods that I consume, or by taking some sort of medication, I could be at risk of having symptoms, for example, that are associated with hormonal imbalances. So if we need cholesterol to produce hormones or vitamin D, in order to maintain cellular walls and thus the cellular health, to maintain good cognitive function and many other things, if I don't consume a healthy amount of cholesterol, our organism will produce it. So let's look at the important question, and that is, how can we lower cholesterol? Or better yet, what is the cholesterol that is damaging to our health? As mentioned a few moments ago, the total amount of cholesterol is not the issue. There are several types of cholesterol, and the notion that LDL is the worst because it transports the majority of the cholesterol to the tissues, and that HDL is the good one because it comes back to the liver and it brings back the cholesterol that was in the tissues back for processing. Unfortunately, this idea, it isn't as simple as that. These are simply methods of transportation, and which in this case is transporting the triglycerides, which can be imagined as the buses that do the transport. So they're not good, but they're not bad. What we really want to reduce is the cardiovascular risk that the molecules can cause. This risk happens when the cholesterol accumulates in our arteries, and for that to happen, we need 3 things to happen. The first thing is that we need a lot of cholesterol in our tissues in order for them to allow it to accumulate. The second aspect is that we need fat to become oxidized. And the third aspect is that the walls of our arteries need to be either swollen or damaged in order for that fat to deposit in those arteries. Without these 3 things, the accumulation of cholesterol won't happen, but we need all 3 things in order to have a higher risk of having cardiovascular problems. And we can lower the risk by correcting these 3 factors. Because we know that cholesterol is going to our tissues, we need to lower the LDL and increase the HDL. So HDL helps us to bring the cholesterol back to our liver, and the cholesterol that arrives to the liver can no longer be oxidized, nor it can accumulate in the arteries because now it is stored within the organ. We also want to remove LDL, which is the one that is associated with cardiovascular problems. But not all LDL will accumulate in our arteries. This can only happen when LDL is a small particle size. Then it needs to become oxidized and develop damage in the artery walls. Now, if the particle size matters, we know that not all are the same, and thus the small ones are the ones that actually clog the arteries, because you could have high levels of LDL and have a small amount of this small particle size. So this is many times the case with people that do the keto diets. This type of LDL is transported by a special form of transportation called the lipoprotein A, which is very similar to the substance that helps us remove plaque from the artery walls. So how do we actually remove this and increase HDL? Well, the first thing is to remove foods that are high in glycemic index, especially refined white flours. These ones elevate small size LDL. Next, we would have to limit and avoid trans fats. These types of fats will not be normally found in the food that we usually make at home, but instead in the majority of the industrialized products, aka junk food. In the third place, you can do strength exercises and high intensity training, allowing us to increase HDL and lower LDL, and helping lower those small size LDL particles. In fourth place, it is to take more omega-3 supplements. And if you've heard me talk about omega-3, any kind of omega-3 will help you lower your cholesterol. The fifth one will be to increase foods that actually help you with your prebiotics, or at the very least, you can consume supplements that accomplish just that. The sixth one is to do a liver cleanse. When you do a cleanse, the mechanism of toxin elimination will be accelerated for a simple reason that you're cleaning the machinery that's in charge of the process of eliminating toxins. This will help better capture LDL and dispose of this particle a lot faster. Lastly, we need to prevent damage to the artery walls by avoiding and lowering the risk of accumulating fat, and also lowering the risk of cardiovascular issues related to this cholesterol. Artery damage and inflammation is actually depending on the location of the artery. The inflammation can actually happen when we have a diet that includes lots of sugar, smoking, and when we consume bad cooking oils like canola or oils that are present in the junk food. If we can lower the consumption of these foods, we can also lower the inflammation and therefore prevent these problems. With these suggestions, you can increase HDL and lower your triglycerides. Another advice that you can follow to lower your triglycerides is intermittent fasting. This method allows us to use all the available energy from carbohydrates and then move on to the fats. When we begin to use fat as energy source, we begin to lower the total body fat and triglycerides at the same time. So what happens when we have a genetic tendency to accumulating cholesterol? Well, if you know that this is the case and you've done a genetic test to confirm these results that indicate a higher tendency of accumulating cholesterol a lot faster, then the only thing that changes is that you will need to manage your diet that is lower on trans fats, and it's simple as that. However, the majority of the people think they have a genetic tendency for high levels of cholesterol because either their father or their grandfather had cholesterol, but most likely they only had a bad diet. Therefore, it is important that you either have a test done or implement one of these simple steps and observe what happens with your cholesterol levels. It is important that you understand that not all fats affect your cholesterol. Fats like olive oil, dry seeds, these will increase your HDL and lower your LDL. Saturated fats like the ones that come from animal fats or coconut oil will increase both HDL and LDL, because the difference is that they won't increase the negative type of LDL. Refined carbohydrates, on the other hand, will increase LDL, the negative type, which are the small particle size that will accumulate a lot faster. Intermittent fasting will help you reduce triglycerides because you're using them as energy, and also help you increase your HDL, and can also increase even more if you exercise during the fast. But putting aside everything, something crucial that must be understood is that this is not a matter of fat within the bloodstream. It's a matter of energy. Our body needs energy and it will always need it. The majority of the time we extract energy from sugars, like in the case of glucose. However, when these doesn't happen, your body needs to take fatty acids to the cells so it can use them as a source of energy, and it takes them in the form of triglycerides. Glucose can travel by itself within the bloodstream, but these fats are not able to do that. Instead, they need to travel in a form of transportation that we know them by the name of LDL, HDL, VLDL, etc. So that means the less sugar we consume, the more we're gonna make use of the fat to generate energy. So if you already have low levels of body fat, your body will need to make use of that fat from the food and the fats that are already within your liver and within your food. This is why people that are already thin will have a tendency to increase their cholesterol levels when they do a diet change like keto. Then the people that are already overweight, because they have available fat all over their tissues, their bodies won't produce as much cholesterol. Someone with a high metabolism needs to move lots of energy to their tissues during diets that are low in fats. This is why this type of people have the stereotype and has a higher tendency to increase cholesterol when they change their diet. The opposite happens when they consume carbohydrates. Consuming more carbohydrates does not imply that we will move less fat. Instead, that fat will accumulate specifically within the liver, giving rise to a fatty liver tissue. And with that being said, if you like this video, please hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and consider subscribing, because we'll be posting more videos like this one every week. Join us as we learn more and more about how to improve our lives and our health. See ya.